Hey guys, it's Shub here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be filling out a NCAA baseball bracket challenge here today. I made a video last year on this channel filling out my bracket, so decided to do the same thing again this year. I do not claim to be a college baseball expert by any means. I just kind of do this for fun. Of course, I always do my research, so I do know a little bit about these teams now that I've dived into some research here. And without further ado, let's get into it. So the first regional here is the Knoxville Regional. The way this works here is that you pick the winner of the regional, and then you also pick a runner-up, and you get points for picking those teams right. You get more points for picking the regional winner, of course, and then you get like 1 point or something if you correctly predict the runner-up. So anyways, I think everyone knows who the winner of this regional is going to be. It is Tennessee. Tennessee has been so good this season. They have a 53-7 total record. They went 25-5 in SEC conference play, which is insane. They won the SEC regular season and the tournament, which is incredible. Tennessee is having an amazing year. They've put up some gaudy numbers. It is actually really impressive what Tennessee has done this year. And I think I'd have to be a maniac to not pick them to win this regional. And then the team that I have coming in as the runner-up is Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's top 10 in on-base percentage and home runs per game, so they can swing the bats a little bit. And Campbell as well is another team that I also considered for this. They also can swing the bat a little bit, but I decided to go with Georgia Tech as the runner-up. Now down to the Statesboro Regional. Georgia Southern is the host in this one. But the team that I have winning this regional is going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame has a number 12 ERA in the country, so they got a good pitching staff. They play in the ACC, so I have them edging out Georgia Southern and Texas Tech over here. And Texas Tech actually is the team that I have as my runner-up. Texas Tech has a solid offense. Their pitching is a little bit questionable. I could see them potentially winning this regional, but I'd probably have to go with Notre Dame over them. And as far as Georgia Southern, I thought about maybe picking them as a runner-up. They are a very good Sun Belt team. They have a high RPI, but I think you just got two good teams here in Texas Tech and Notre Dame in their regional, so kind of a bad draw. And they were the lowest ranked regional host. So that sets up Tennessee and Notre Dame in the Supers there, but I'm going to go through all these regionals first before I go to Supers. So next here, down to the Austin Regional. Texas is top 50 in ERA and on base percentage, and they just are a solid all-around team. At the beginning of the season, if you guys recall, Texas, I think, was preseason number 1. They had a lot of hype. A lot of people thought they would be the best team in the country this year. Kind of hit some choppy waters there in the middle of the season, but they've started to play better lately, and I still think they're a really good team with a ton of talent. They made it deep last year into the College World Series. So I'm going to have Texas winning this regional. And then next up as the runner-up, this was a tough choice between Dallas Baptist and Louisiana Tech, but I had to go with Dallas Baptist. I went with DBU because they have played a ton of really good teams this year. Their strength of schedule, believe it or not, was number 9 in the country, and they had the number 1 hardest non-conference strength of schedule. And they've played teams like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, TCU, Maryland, Southern Miss, and they've beaten those teams. So not only have they played them, but they've been able to beat those teams. And Dallas Baptist is a really good program, so it would almost seem sacrilegious of me not to pick Dallas Baptist in any form or fashion at this time of year. So I went with them. Louisiana Tech, don't get me wrong, they're a good team. I saw they have really good pitching, but I can't fade Dallas Baptist here, so I at least have them as the runner-up. Greenville Regional. East Carolina is going to be the team that I have winning this regional. East Carolina's got a good staff. They've been a very consistent program, low-key, over recent years. I think they were a regional host last year, and they always seem to be a regional host. And anyways, they've won 18 games in a row. They won the American Conference regular season and the tournament. So I'm going to go with East Carolina. And then the runner-up, I'm actually going to pick Coastal Carolina. Coastal is a very solid team, and Coastal, that 2016 run they had where they won the College World Series, that really left such a good impression on me. That was incredible. So I'm going to give the Chanticleers here the nod as the runner-up, and I went and faded Virginia. And this was tough of me to do because Virginia is a very high power rated team, and Virginia actually is the favorite betting wise to win this regional. So this sort of was like an upset for me, believe it or not. East Carolina was not the favorite to win this regional, even though they're the 1 seed. So I'm fading Virginia. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're a solid all-around team, but they haven't played well of late. So I just kind of went with the regional host there. So I went with the 2 Carolina schools. Down here to College Station. The team that I'm going to have winning this regional is not Texas A&M. It's not TCU. It's not Louisiana. I'm picking Oral Roberts. I know this is bold, but hear me out. It's double elimination format. It's college baseball. This sport is not like football where you never really see upsets of this magnitude. But in baseball, the ball can bounce one way or the other. And you see sometimes, a lot of times you're going to see these teams that are like the 3 and 4 seeds, they'll win these regionals. And it's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes this can happen. And the reason why I did this was just because I think this top to bottom is just the most competitive regional. Like, there wasn't really one team that stuck out to me way more than the others. I know Texas A&M is good, but after looking at this, I think Oral Roberts is probably the strongest 4 seed in this entire tournament. So I'm just kind of going with the value play here and picking them to win this regional. Again, that's my reasoning for doing this. Obviously, I'm probably not going to be right, but this usually happens in one of these regionals, so this is where I'm picking it to happen. Oral Roberts is number 21 in the country in ERA. They're number 13 in strikeouts to walk ratio, so the pitching staff's got really good numbers. And they won the Summit League tournament, and they've also played some good teams. They've beaten Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. So it's not like Oral Roberts hasn't beaten any good teams this season. So that's all the reasoning I have for picking them to win this regional. And then as far as the runner-up, I felt bad not picking Texas A&M. They're a good team, so I at least have them as the runner-up here. TCU and Louisiana are also very solid teams as well. I mean, I could totally see any one of these 4 teams winning this regional, so none of these teams winning would surprise me, but I'm going with the value play. This is arguably my boldest pick of this bracket, Oral Roberts winning. But now we'll move on to the Louisville Regional. This regional, I think, is probably going to come down to 2 teams, Louisville and Oregon. I don't really see that much from Michigan that I like, so it was between Louisville and Oregon, and I'm going to go with Louisville. Louisville's number 14 in on-base percentage. They got a very good lineup. And as far as Oregon, there's nothing really that stood out to me as far as the stat categories, but they did finish 4th in the Pac-12, so they're a solid team. I have them as the runner-up, but I'm going to have Louisville. They're the home team. They're the hosts, so I'm going to have them winning that regional. Now down here to Gainesville. In this regional, this one was a little tough for me, but I'm going to go with Florida to win this one. Florida, they have a ton of talent on their team. They've been playing very well of late. They made a deep run in the SEC tournament. They lost to Tennessee in the championship game. And the pitching, believe it or not, has come together. They lost their ace, Hunter Barco, at the beginning of the year. But I was surprised to see that they actually still have pretty good numbers pitching-wise, despite that injury. And they've just been playing very well of late, so I'm going to pick them as sort of the hot hand here. And then the team I have as the runner-up is going to be Liberty. Liberty has a good pitching staff, and they actually beat Florida 2 out of 3 earlier in the series. I think it was the first series of the year. They went down to Gainesville, and they beat Florida 2 out of 3. So it's not like Liberty hasn't played any good teams. This is a team that definitely I could see is capable of winning this regional. Oklahoma also is a solid team that I think is capable of winning this regional, of course. But I'm going to say that Florida gets the revenge over Liberty, and Florida moves on to the Supers. And then down here to Blacksburg, I'm going to have Virginia Tech, the number 4 overall seed. I have them moving on. They're top 40 in ERA, and they're also top 40 on base percentage, so they're a well-balanced team. And they ended up having the best record in the ACC, and the ACC was arguably the best conference. They have the most teams in this tournament, I believe. So on paper, at least, the ACC was the best conference this year. We'll see how that plays out. But I'm going to have Virginia Tech moving on here. And I think they got sort of a favorable draw with these teams here. Gonzaga's got good pitching, but I only have them coming up as the runner-up. I don't think they can get past Virginia Tech. And then Wright State, I think, is decent bats. So Wright State, maybe a team that could finish as the runner-up. But I think Virginia Tech moves on. So now to the other side here, the Stanford Regional. Stanford, the number 2 overall seed in the country. They won the Pac-12 regular season and tournament, and they have also won 16 games in a row coming into this. So Stanford's been red hot. They're the number 2 team in the country, but I don't have them winning this regional. I have Texas State winning this regional, and my reasoning is Texas State this year, they dominated the Sun Belt Conference. They were 26-4 in Sun Belt Conference play. They're number 40 overall in ERA. They're number 26 overall in on-base percentage. And I looked at their schedule. They've beaten good teams this year. They've played teams like Texas and Arizona, and they took 2 out of 3 from Arizona. So it was tough for me to fade Stanford here. Stanford's really good, but I think, believe it or not, they actually just got kind of a tough draw here. UC Santa Barbara also is a top 25 team. Both of these teams down here are top 25 teams, so it may not look like it, but I think Stanford actually got a tough draw here. So again, I'm kind of taking a value play here. I'm going to pick Texas State. UCSB, they're a team I could also see making a run in this regional, number 11 in ERA, and they've also won 11 out of their last 12. So I'm not going to pick them as the runner-up. I'm going to pick Stanford as the runner-up because I think they still are really good, but I could totally see one of these top 3 teams winning this. I think Stanford has definitely got its work cut out for itself. Now down to College Park. I do not have Maryland winning. I have Wake Forest moving on. Wake Forest, I like them. I like this team a lot, actually. They're top 50 in ERA, and they have really good bats as well. They're number 2 in the country in on-base percentage, and they are number 6 in the country in home runs per game, so they can really swing the bats and hit bombs. I think Wake Forest is arguably the strongest 2 seed in this entire tournament, with also UConn. UConn is top 4 in the country in ERA and strikeout to walk ratio, so they got a very good staff with very good numbers and ratios, also top 50 in on-base percentage. So I'm going to say that UConn actually is the runner-up here. And again, Maryland is a good team. They have a very good offense. They can swing the bats as well, top 10 in OBP and home runs per game. So I think UConn here with the pitching is a very good contrast to Maryland with the bats. But I have UConn winning that battle as the runner-up, and Wake Forest, of course, moving on. So kind of a tough draw for Maryland, in my opinion, there. Now down to Chapel Hill. This one I wasn't really too sure about, but I'm going to have North Carolina winning this regional. North Carolina is a solid team. They kind of finished middle of the pack in the ACC. They are power rated top 10 by all the computer models I was looking at. So it's a team that I think's got some talent. And then the team I have finishing as the runner-up is VCU. VCU is number 6 in the country in ERA and strikeout to walk ratio. So they got a good staff. They've played some big schools this season. I looked at their schedule. So I think they're capable of being the runner-up. And of course, Georgia as well. I mean, Georgia is a good team. They played a very tough schedule, but there wasn't really anything that stood out to me as far as the stats for them. So I don't know. I'm not really confident about this one. I think any of these 3 teams could win it potentially, but I'm going to play it safe and say North Carolina wins. Now down to the Stillwater Regional. This one was very tough. This was one of the toughest regionals for me to pick. And I'm going to make another bold move here. I'm going to say that Grand Canyon wins this regional. Grand Canyon has a very good pitching staff, and they played the number 6 ranked non-conference strength of schedule. I originally wasn't going to pick Grand Canyon. I was originally going to pick Oklahoma State, but then after I looked at Grand Canyon's schedule and I see the teams that they've played, and listen to this, Grand Canyon, they played Arizona. They beat 2 out of 3 games against Arizona. They split 1-1 with Stanford. They split 1-1 with Oregon State, and they swept Texas Tech 2-0. So they have beaten some really good teams, and they've beaten a couple of good teams multiple times. So this team is certainly capable of beating good teams. They've proven they can do it. And again, it's a little bit of a bold pick, but I'm just kind of rolling the dice here and saying that one of the lower seeds wins this regional. Oklahoma State and Arkansas are very good teams. I have Oklahoma State as the runner-up. They have decent pitching. They're a consensus top 15 team. Same thing with Arkansas. They're a very good team, the consensus top 30 team, but I'm rolling the dice here. I'm going to say that Grand Canyon moves on. Now down here to Coral Gables. This one was also very tough for me to pick. I was between Miami and Ole Miss. I could basically flip a coin between these two teams, but I'm going to say that the home team moves on here and Miami wins this regional. Miami's a very solid team. They did pretty well in the ACC. And then Ole Miss, kind of similar to Miami, they put up similar numbers, similar strengths and weaknesses, at least from what I could see. And I'm going to say that they're a close runner-up. I'm sure this regional will be pretty competitive. Arizona is also a very solid team as well. So, again, not really confident in this one, but I'm going to have Miami moving on. The Hattiesburg Regional, I'm going to have LSU winning this one. I like Southern Miss a lot, and I originally liked Southern Miss going into this tournament. And then when I saw that they got LSU as their 2 seed, I was just like, it's a tough draw. But LSU is top 25 in ERA, strike to walk ratio, and also on base percentage and homers per game. So all the key stats that I was looking at that were available online, LSU was top 25 in all of them, and it was just hard for me to pick against LSU after seeing all that. And it sucks because I really liked Southern Miss. Southern Miss is number 2 in the country in ERA, and they're number 1 in the country in strikeouts to walk ratio, which means their staff's got some nasty stuff. This is a really good pitching staff for Southern Miss, and they got some dudes there, but I think just such a tough draw with LSU in their regional. I think if Southern Miss was in a lot of these other regionals, I probably would have picked them to win, but I'm going to have LSU moving on. And then these last 2 regionals down here, this one was also very tough. The pitching in this regional looks really good. A lot of these top 3 teams have very good pitching numbers. And I'm actually going to have Florida State winning this regional. This was very tough for me. Again, not confident in this, but I just picked Florida State sort of as like a value play here, a value pick. Florida State's pitching staff is very good. They're top 20 in ERA, and strikeouts to walk ratio is elite. They're top 3 in that. So they also got guys with nasty stuff that can locate the ball really well. And then UCLA is also top 20 in both those categories I've mentioned. So these 2 teams have very good pitching staffs with a lot of talent on them. And I'm going to have UCLA as the runner-up for that reason. And Auburn, it was tough for me to fade them, but Auburn, they also have solid pitching, but I just didn't think it was quite as good as these 2 down here. So this is where I have 2 teams not hosting the regional as the finalists here. Florida State moving on as the 3 seed. And then the last regional down here in Corvallis, I have Oregon State, the Beavers, moving on. Oregon State's a solid all-around team. They're the number 3 overall seed. They're top of the charts and a lot of the key stats I was looking at. And then the runner-up I have is Vanderbilt. This is going to be really interesting because Vanderbilt, they have very good pitching per usual. Vanderbilt's played the number 1 strength of schedule in the entire country. So even though their record's not very good and they're sort of middle of the pack in the SEC, they played the toughest strength of schedule. However, they did get smacked around in the SEC tournament. They lost by nearly 10 runs in their last 2 games. They got knocked out of there. But I still believe in Vanderbilt. I mean, this is a team that was in the College World Series finals last year, so it would be tough for me to fade them in any capacity. But I think it's just tough. I mean, you got 2 blue blood baseball programs here in Oregon State and Vanderbilt in the same regional, which I think is going to be really cool. And then San Diego, too. I mean, I thought about San Diego. They have good pitching as well, but I thought they just got a tough draw. And I think San Diego could be a sleeper team if they were parked in some of these other regionals here. But this is who I have moving on, Oregon State down here. So my super regionals are set. And I believe I have 7 ACC teams in the super regionals, so I didn't really expect that coming into this when I filled it out, but that's just kind of the way I filled it out. So 7 ACC teams in here. And now we'll start up here to the top left. So these are the teams I'm going to have moving on to the College World Series. I am going to have Tennessee moving on. I mean, Notre Dame's a very good team, but Tennessee at home in a best 2 out of 3, I just think Tennessee's going to move on. I mean, it'd be very hard to fade Tennessee. I think a lot of people are going to pick them to win it all. And at this point, I think I'd have to be dumb to not pick Tennessee to at least go to the College World Series. I'm not going to be that bold to fade them this early. Down here, Texas and East Carolina. I'm going to have Texas moving on. I think Texas, again, a lot of talent, and this is a team that had a lot of hype at the beginning of the year, so I think maybe this late surge, they've been playing well. I think they edge out East Carolina. I think this Super Regionals would be competitive if this is how it plays out. And then here, I have Louisville moving on. I think I'd be pushing my luck a little too far if I had Oral Roberts going to the College World Series. So if this is how it played out, I think Louisville would have a favorable draw here in the Super Regionals. So that's how I have them moving on. And then down here, this one was kind of tough because I like Florida a lot. They're coming in hot, but Virginia Tech, too much of a solid team. I think the Super Regionals would be very competitive if these are the two teams. But I'm going to have Virginia Tech. I'm going to have the Hokies moving on. I think they put it together and make a very deep run this year. So I have the Hokies moving on. And this is my first bracket here is complete with these teams. And now over here to the other side, Texas State and Wake Forest, same thing here. I think I'd be pushing my luck here with Texas State, but I'm going to have Wake Forest moving on. Like I said earlier, I like this Wake Forest team a lot. I think they're a very strong 2 seed, so I have them going to Omaha. North Carolina and Grand Canyon. I'm picking Grand Canyon. I know it's bold, but every single year there's one of these teams makes it. So I'm just sort of picking it, assuming that one of these teams is one of these lower seeded teams get in. So I'm gonna shoot my shot and say that it's Grand Canyon. That's my sleeper team. That's who I have making the College World Series. And then Miami and LSU. This one I figure will be pretty competitive if this is what it is. But I'm gonna go with LSU. I think LSU just overall just a better team. And again, another very strong 2 seed. So I have them moving on. And then down here, I'm going to have Oregon State. I think FSU's run here comes to an end, and I really like Oregon State a lot. And I have them moving on, especially being at home in the Supers. And so now my College World Series is complete. So these are the 8 teams that I have making it. I believe I have 3 ACC teams in here. So a couple SEC teams as well. So without further ado, the first bracket, I have Virginia Tech winning and moving on to the finals. I know, you don't have to tell me. Tennessee's very good, but hear me out. Everyone said last year that Arkansas looked like a juggernaut. Arkansas looked very similar to how Tennessee was this year. You can make an argument Tennessee was better than Arkansas was last year, but everyone and their mom thought Arkansas was going to win it all last year, and they didn't even make it out of Super Regionals. So as I said earlier, it's just the nature of the sport. When you're playing baseball and it's only double elimination, you can have a lot of good or bad luck go either way, and you can have really good teams that just get unlucky. And there's just so much variance, and I just got a feeling that Tennessee's not going to win it all this year, and so this is where I have their road coming to an end. Again, if you think this is asinine, I'll just tell you to look at what happened last year to Arkansas. So I have Virginia Tech moving on, and then down here to the second bracket, I'm going to have Oregon State in the finals matching up with Virginia Tech, and I'm going to have Wake Forest as the runner-up. So I believe this is the number 3 overall seed and the number 4 overall seed here in the tournament, and I'm going to have Oregon State winning it all. I'm going to have the Beavers winning what would be their 4th national championship if they pull this off. And actually, this would be their 4th national championship in the last 17 years. So if this happens and Oregon State wins it all, that'd be pretty impressive. That would be sort of a dynasty that they got going on if the Beavers can win it all. But if you guys were wondering how to fill this out and do your own bracket yourself, this is on d1baseball.com. It's the 2022 bracket challenge. I'll leave a link to it in the description of this video. All you have to do is just make an account and stuff to do it. And once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see y'all later.